So today we're going to talk about what happened in 2018 because there are a few things that stood out to me, and I was doing a little bit of digging. So I know that in 2018 they looked at the case again because on the 2007 mitochondrial DNA results, it shows a little stamp here that it was printed by rdered, which is Lieutenant David Norris, and that was on December 13th, 2018. And by the way, he is related to Judge Norris, in case you were wondering. I looked it up. And Sergeant Scott Black is the other guy who was involved. Yeah. But what they did in early 2019 is they re-interviewed William Barrett, the guy who was talked about on the Dateline episode, and they did a polygraph test, which they didn't allow into evidence. And I would have thought that if they were sort of having a re-look into a case, that they would retest the swabs because the technology was better than it has been in the past, and it hasn't really changed since that time. So I would have thought they would do that anyway. Then I was just on the Googles and I was I found something else that happened in 2018, and it was a cold case that was solved. So what we'll do is we'll go to this one. Man arrested after new DNA evidence in 2002, Athens homicide. So this article was published in May 2018. This is the victim. Her name was Pamela Chrysler. So they arrested this guy, LaRoche, in 2018. It says, we received what's commonly known as a CODIS hit or a DNA hit on a 2002 cold case murder that occurred off West Broad Street. Detectives began to look into that CODIS hit, and it came back from the victim's name was Pamela Chrysler, a 49-year-old white female. So they received new information in November 2017, and then they were working on the case and they were trying to find LaRoche. It says here, we're going to continue to work those cases. We're going to continue to look into those cases. There are several high-profile ones in Athens that we're looking at and continuing to work, and hopefully one we're able to do. Anyway, so he was taken into custody. He got charged with murder, and it was David Norris who was involved in that. This next one, this is from 2020, and it just talks again about the crime. Here's our old Randy Garrett. So this just talks about what they did, and the case went cold, and then they got word that they'd found a match. And we can see one of the characters that we know from the trial, Marla Lawson, who was the forensic artist. So what happened in September 2017, LaRoche was placed on probation for various crimes, and he did a deal where he gave a sample of his DNA, and then that was routinely entered into the state's database. And then they figured out, because they do this like searching and stuff all the time, that he matched with this old case. It's interesting here how it says during the interview, when the officers explained that they were from Athens, they reported a change in his demeanour. Norris wrote that his body language changed. He was unable to sit still. He constantly fidgeted and his voice sounded nervous. And that really reminded me of the reports of Chris Melton's behaviour when he was being interviewed. But as you could see, I guess maybe because he was the boyfriend and also he's white, they just explained away that behaviour. And it's funny how in this situation that was seen as something suspicious. Double standards? Another thing that's different in this investigation compared to what they did with Edrick. So it says when the interview was done, they didn't arrest LaRoche. Instead, they obtained another DNA swab and he was allowed to leave. Instead, surprisingly, they found some more evidence and armed with physical and mostly circumstantial evidence, police obtained warrants charging him with felony and malice murder. He was arrested on May 8, 2018 and indicted 3 months later. And it says here, Western Circuit Chief Assistant District Attorney James Chafin received the case and pored over the challenges it presented as he prepared for trial. The case was circumstantial. There were no eyewitnesses. The murder weapon was never found, and some of the witnesses had moved or passed away or had faded memories. But they prosecuted it anyway because that's how they roll in the Western Circuit. We've got David Norris's cousin over here helping out. So he ended up accepting a plea agreement, which is not surprising because I think that's what they try and do. They tried to get Edrick to accept a plea agreement as well. Now, I don't know if this guy did it. I think he actually confessed, so that's fine. But it's just interesting. It's just interesting how the cases were handled very differently. And here it says, as the case grew cold, they periodically checked CODIS. Okay, interesting.